to this computer. All right. Now it's 10 a.m. It's time to get started. Hello and good morning and welcome to this webinar, Email Management with Therefore. So I cannot hear you, but I would still love to interact with you. Please use the Q&A function. Simply look for this icon here. You gotta hover your mouse maybe, and then you can type a question or a comment in, and then I'll look at the comments and the questions periodically throughout the presentation and answer any questions that you might have. So my name is Jennifer Schmidt. I'm a member of Therefore's digital engagement team. I've been working with Therefore for about 10 years now. And I love doing webinars. I love talking and meeting people around the world. I also do the e-learning, and I do other types of communication and information about Therefore as well. And I love my job. So today we're going to be talking about email management with Therefore. So what is the agenda? What are we planning to do today? We'll start off with an overview of email management in Therefore to give you a basic idea of how it generally works. Some of you on the call may be new to Therefore, so we'll do a brief review to help ensure we're all on the same page. We're then going to talk about some different methods of managing email with Therefore and see which tools you would use in which case. I'll explain the licensing and configuration options, and then we'll take a closer look at the scenarios of ad hoc saving, mailbox monitoring, selective saving, and journaling, which are part of the Exchange connector. And that's it. So we'll then conclude. So this webinar should be quite short, about half an hour long. So let's go. You've got mail. As you know, email is essential to business, but it can be complicated to maintain an overview of all communication. Emails are saved into one employee's mailbox, and then there's little oversight of what's going in or out. Moreover, there can be an extremely high volume of email, which means it's even harder to control or categorize every message. It can be very difficult to know how important an email is until you suddenly find yourself in need of it. Plus, a very important email from a client is in your inbox right next to the umpteenth spam message or that newsletter that you really don't remember setting up for, but now all of a sudden you're getting emails from that newsletter like every week. The universally frustrating experience of looking for some long forgotten email with that tiny little important detail in it is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. We've all been there and we all hate it. So of course we try to keep a tidy inbox by deleting what we deem to be unnecessary. This can turn into a serious problem in situations where you need to be able to track and trace communications, usually regarding a sensitive matter. It's far too easy for important emails to just disappear. So what can we do about it? Well, Therefore gives you the tools to manage your email information. Spoiler alert. There are a lot of applications out there on the market that will only help you manage your email. But Therefore does everything related to information management, right? This means you can save your emails and link them to other relevant documents that are already in your Therefore system. Saving an email can also start a workflow automatically. For example, an invoice sent by email could start an invoice approval workflow and more. Therefore can also track incoming mails. You can assign an email to a retention policy to ensure that the email is retained by the Therefore system for the amount of time set in the policy. This is very useful for information that needs to be retained for a certain period of time for legal or auditing purposes. So in sum, email management tools from Therefore increase your productivity, your security, compliance, and traceability. Now we're going to look at these 4 benefits in greater detail. Starting with productivity. Therefore can help companies be more productive by managing email information in a way that allows it to be used as a strategic asset. When all information is on a single platform, users can spend time on strategic tasks rather than spending hours searching or organizing their email or documents. This saves time, makes employees more productive, but it's also more fulfilling and fun for employees to actually do their work rather than spend hours clicking around in an email box or a folder trying to find that one important document. We've all been there. It is not enjoyable at all. You want to be able to do the work that you were trained to do rather than just searching and trying to find stuff or following up. Hey, where did this go? And did you send the email to this client yet? So by having it all in Therefore, you can save the time on these really unfulfilling tasks, searching and following up and all this stuff, and actually do your job, which makes you more productive, more happy. And also it makes onboarding new employees much easier, because if you have an organized platform, a very organized way of going about your business, it just makes it much easier for new employees to start and know exactly what to do and where to look. Benefit 2, remember, was security. So all emails can have security permissions applied to them so that only certain users can access the stored content. Same with any document or file saved in Therefore. Information is automatically backed up in Therefore, which means the configurations in Therefore can be applied to certain mailboxes so that data can be backed up, which is important when it comes to demonstrating adherence of regulatory compliance. So you can move all the emails to a secure repository and you can back it up. So again, and benefit 2, security. Benefit 3 of using Therefore for email management is compliance. So maintaining compliance is getting more important every year. Regulatory agencies and audits are getting stricter, so non-compliance fees are getting higher, which means it's just more important to really maintain compliance. Part of compliance may require emails to be moved to a secure repository, like with the Exchange connector, where emails are journaled through Microsoft Exchange and can be automatically saved in Therefore. Keeping records of emails also provides traceability for audit and regulatory purposes. And the final benefit, traceability. Traceability refers to the ability to view exactly what happened at what time by whom. And of course, if you are using Therefore to track your processes, you can have complete records of all email traffic. You can see exactly what was sent, when. You have an audit log for user system actions. And you can use workflow to even further increase the traceability and have it all in one spot. Very important. So now that we've talked about these benefits, what are the scenarios that we're going to be covering specifically with Therefore today? The first scenario that we'll talk about is scenario 1. This is a situation where emails need to be linked to a project or document, or should start a document process, or you just want your specific emails to be saved into the Therefore repository. So scenario 1 is an ad hoc saving, where you have specific emails that you want to save manually into Therefore. And here we have a little graphic showing that's the email. You want it to go with a document. Maybe you have an email from a client saying, yes, the changes to the presentation look good. You want to put that in with the presentation that's saved in Therefore. And then maybe you have a workflow also that would start like a workflow for approval, right? Scenario 1, this is the most simple ad hoc saving. Scenario 2 is emails from a certain mailbox or a folder within that mailbox should be automatically indexed and saved to Therefore. So here we have orders@moriware.com. That's our mailbox. It does not have to be Outlook, but in this case, we have an Outlook icon. So any type of mail from a specific mailbox should be saved to Therefore without user intervention. Scenario 3 is certain emails from multiple mailboxes should be automatically indexed and saved to multiple various Therefore categories based on selected criteria. So in this case, we've got a couple of different mailboxes, and if they have certain keywords, maybe a certain subject or a certain sender or other specific criteria, you want Therefore to automatically save them to different folders in their Therefore system. And finally, this is the Exchange connector. All emails that are sent and received by the company need to be securely backed up for audit. And this is the journaling scenario with the Microsoft Exchange connector. Let me just check, do we have any questions so far? No questions. So licensing and configuration. I'll go into the specifics in just a bit, but for now, scenario 1 was ad hoc saving, where you were the person who was deciding, I want this email to be saved. You click send to Therefore, save to Therefore. It's called ad hoc saving. This was provided by the Microsoft Office integration and optionally also using indexing profile, which is standard in all Therefore editions. So if you just want to save certain emails to Therefore and you don't want it to be done automatically, you can do that using just the standard Therefore feature, which is free with all Therefore software. It's just Microsoft Office integration. Scenario 2, this was where we had emails from a specific mailbox or a folder in a mailbox, orders@moyaware.com, for example. That is called mailbox monitoring. That is where the Therefore system monitors a certain mailbox or a folder of the mailbox, and it saves all those emails automatically with no user intervention to Therefore, and that is called mailbox monitoring. For that, you need to purchase the Therefore Content Connector license. So the Therefore Content Connector license is a server license. It does cost extra, but it means that you only need to buy one license and you can use it as often as you like for as many users as you like. So it's a very cost-effective, very powerful tool. Scenario 3 and Scenario 4 both require the connector for Microsoft Exchange Server. So Scenario 3 was where you wanted to have specific emails saved from multiple mailboxes. And Scenario 4 was the journaling scenario where we wanted everything to be saved to Therefore. All right, so we'll look at these scenarios in greater detail now. All right. So Scenario 1, specific emails need to be linked to a project or document and should start a document process. Or you just want the emails to be saved to Therefore. They don't necessarily have to start a process or a workflow. And in this case, this is just the ad hoc saving. So what you can do here is you'll notice I have a screenshot showing the Save to Therefore button. When you install Therefore, you have the option of installing this Therefore connector when the part of the Outlook app. There is no separate licensing required. The one caveat is that it does not work with the Outlook web app, only the installed version on your PC. But as long as you have that set up, you have a lot of options available to you. So when you have Therefore on your PC, you'll get an extra tab in Outlook called Therefore, which will give you the full range of options there. All you have to do is open the email you want to save, switch to the Therefore tab, and go from there. You'll see there's the Save to Therefore button on the left. That's the main one that you'll be working with. You have some different options just to the right of it. One important concept to understand is what we call indexing profiles. So what are indexing profiles? Indexing profiles are set up by the administrator, so end users don't ever have to worry about it. But basically, indexing profiles are like templates of what information should be extracted from the email that you're saving. For example, the profile can be set up so the system always extracts the email subject, the body, and the date, or whatever information you want to have it saved to Therefore. And then you map the fields from the email, which is here in the mail object, with the fields in the category, which is the category fields. And you just say, okay, company name, that should be mapped to display name. Date received would be perhaps the date. Here, sent. And so you just map those fields, and then every single time that you open the Saved and Therefore and you use that template, that indexing profile, that information will already be pre-populated and you don't need to manually type it into the Therefore category. So it can save a lot of time, it can decrease user error, so it's very simple but very powerful. Then if you don't want to use the Save to Therefore function, you could also just drag and drop the email into your Therefore repository. No problem at all. That's also just a standard Therefore feature. And you can also, of course, once an email is in the Therefore repository, it can automatically start a workflow. So if you get an invoice by email, you could automatically save it to you would manually save it to the invoice category, and that would then automatically jumpstart the invoice approval workflow. So there you go. Now that we've gotten this basic scenario out of the way, let's look at scenario 2. This is where emails within a certain mailbox should be automatically indexed and saved to Therefore. And in this case, you can see here, we have a sample orders@moriaware.com. We want all those emails from that box to be saved automatically to Therefore without any user intervention. The way this works is through a tool in Therefore called the Content Connector. The Content Connector is a very broad import and capture tool that does a lot of different things. The feature that we'll focus on is mailbox monitoring. So the Content Connector does require a separate license, but it's a no-brainer because it's has such a high added value for Therefore. You can do so many different things. You can import many different documents. It's a server license, which means you pay once and you can use it multiple times, regardless of how many users you have. So you can really use the Content Connector to monitor as many mailboxes as you like. And the way the Content Connector works is I'll give you a brief tutorial right now. If you're interested in a more detailed tutorial on how the Content Connector works, check out our e-learning. If you're not sick and tired of hearing me talk, you can watch a video on the electronic document import course all about the Content Connector, and I go into really detail there. But for right now, I'll just quickly show you how it works. So you have the Content Connector license, and now you want to use mailbox monitoring to save all emails from a certain mailbox. And so the use case is you have a mailbox, for example, invoices at therefore.net. You want all the emails from the mailbox to be saved to your Therefore category. The setup does require a few steps, but remember, once you've set it up, it will go by itself in the background. No more user intervention is required. So it's really one of those things where you set it and forget it. What I'm going to show you now, this is pure administrator stuff. And an end user will never have to go through these steps. For them, it works just like magic. All an end user will see is they will open up their Therefore system and notice, oh, there's new emails in here. Or they'll get workflow tasks that are automatically sent to them. So end users have to do nothing at all once it's set up. So step one is to set up the indexing profile that we mentioned earlier. This may look a little complicated, but in reality, all you're doing is telling the Therefore system to save a document in a certain category and extract the information from the mail, which is the assignment here, and fill it into the Therefore category field. Right. This should look familiar. So the profile name is a finance email profile, and we're saving all the emails into the Moriaware finance category. Then in step two is we're going to tell the Content Connector which mailbox we want to monitor. So obviously you have to let the system know what kind of mailbox it is, and you need to then authenticate with the appropriate username and password. You just can't go about monitoring anyone's emails without the correct permissions, right? So, and as you can see here, we select what kind of type of email it is. So it can be used for Exchange, online, on-premise, Gmail, or any other IMAP for mailbox, which is like Hotmail or most other free email services. So you're really not limited on the type of mailbox that you're monitoring. Then you can tell the system what should happen after it has processed. You can either delete the emails after they were processed and saved to Therefore. And if there's faulty emails for some reason an email cannot be processed, then you can move them to a different box or a different folder on your email. You can also adjust the polling interval, which is how often does the mailbox monitoring service look in that mailbox for new emails. Right, now we're going to set up what we call a job. Those are the specifics of what emails the connector should look for. We're telling it to use the finance email profile, indexing profile, invoice as a subject filter, and to save the information as a PDF in Therefore. There are other options as well. For example, you can decide if you want to save just the email or its attachments as well. And you can also have multiple jobs for one mailbox. So you can set up different jobs to monitor one mailbox. So depending on what the subject is, you can have different things happen, different places where those emails are saved. And you can also monitor a folder within a mailbox. So if you set up an Outlook rule that all emails from a certain customer are put into a separate folder, then you can only monitor that folder, and those emails then would only be saved. So you have a lot of options with mailbox monitoring. And of course, once the mailbox monitoring has been set up, emails will just automatically be saved, therefore, with the appropriate index data. And users will then be able to see the emails in their Therefore system, just like you see here. So we have a Therefore navigator, and you can see the emails are saved here. End user will just see this. They won't actually have to do anything at all. So it's a really great option. Let's look at the Q&A. Selective saving is when you select what you want to save. You don't want everything to be saved, just simple emails in your inbox. You're the one who's deciding what you would like. This is not mailbox monitoring. Selective saving is the ad hoc option where you're the one making the choice of what to save and what not. Is supporting the web version of Outlook on the roadmap. Not for this upcoming release, but it is something that has been requested. All right, thank you for those questions. All right, cool. Let's move on now to scenario 3. Yeah, this looks good. That scenario 3 now. So scenario 3 is that certain emails within multiple mailboxes should be automatically indexed and saved to multiple various Therefore categories based on selection criteria. So here, certain emails within multiple mailboxes should be automatically indexed and saved to multiple Therefore categories based on the criteria. This scenario requires the use of the Therefore connector for Microsoft Exchange Server. This is also a paid option that must be purchased separately since the functionality and flexibility goes beyond standard Therefore features. How is this configured? This type of scenario needs to be configured by an administrator in the connector settings. The way I like to think of it is like a supercharged indexing profile because it gives you so many more options that are tailor-made for Exchange. So it starts off pretty simple. Just name your profile and choose where you want to save it in Therefore. Right? Here's the name of the profile, invoices, and where do you want to save it, what category, Exchange invoices. Then you start by adding some filters. This is where you have a lot of flexibility with adding not only the fields, but also conditions like starts with, does not include, has attachments, things like that. I'm not going to go into too many details, but it allows you to configure everything very precisely. And then you can then choose which folders to include or exclude. Here we choose to include a subfolder in our inbox called invoices, right? And we specifically chose to exclude drafts, sent items, deleted items, and junk email, right? The mapping is easy. You just have your information. It's pulling from an Exchange, and then you need to tell it where to put that information in Therefore. So here's Therefore. And here was what it's in the Exchange. So mapping the fields from Therefore to Exchange. And then what happens next? Then you need to see that we configured these settings for the entire finance group. You can do this for other groups, individuals, or any combination thereof. And again, after you set this all up, the connector will run in the background and take care of everything automatically with no user intervention required at all. So that is scenario 3. Scenario 4 is the journaling scenario. We're using, again, the Microsoft Exchange connector. And in this scenario, all emails that are sent and received by the company need to be securely backed up for audit. So basically the setup works the same as the previous scenario, except we're going to configure a profile that applies to all our Exchange users. It's set up by the administrator, and they choose what they want to save and how. One question that I get a lot is, what is the advantage of this? I mean, Exchange does keep a record of everything anyways, so why would you want to save everything in Therefore? Well, the answer depends on the needs of the company that want to implement a journaling policy. In general, journaling is a preferable option for companies and industries that are tightly regulated or for whom documentation is extremely important. Think like the pharmaceutical company, for example, where they really need everything to be protocoled. The advantage of using journaling with the Exchange connector is twofold. On one hand, it allows you to have a very neat, organized, and easily searchable list of all emails. Each email actually has an insane amount of metadata behind it that Exchange is storing, but you don't really need everything, right? You just need main things like the sender, recipient, dates, and things like that. By only saving the crucial information to therefore, you're making it much easier to look up everything because you're minimizing to only the information that you actually need. Another advantage is that having an additional offset backup for extra security. And that's extremely important if you're using your own Exchange server on site rather than Exchange online. You never know what can happen with an on-site server, so it's always good to have an extra backup. Yeah, so that is the conclusion of this webinar. Let's look at what we have. We have 3 different options for saving and managing emails in Therefore. The first one is just the Microsoft Outlook integration. This is built into Therefore. This is what we call the ad hoc situation where you're the one deciding when to save emails into Therefore. You can use the Save to Therefore option, which is part of your Outlook, or you can drag and drop emails into Therefore. You can use an indexing profile to help extract information from the email, but the important thing here is for the first situation is that it is manual. You're the one telling the system when this email should be saved. Number 2 is the Therefore Content Connector Mailbox Monitoring. This requires the Content Connector license, and in this case, you set up a profile and a job, and you tell the system when should emails be saved to Therefore from which box, and the system does it all on its own. If you're interested in learning more about the Content Connector, check out our e-learning electronic document import. I cover a lot about mailbox monitoring in that course. And finally, the connector from Microsoft Exchange Server that allows you to set up smart archiving or compliance archiving, which is the journaling scenario. Let me see if we have any more questions. Does the company not normally have a tool to archive the Exchange because of law? To be honest, it's a lot of different situations why companies want to use the Exchange connector. It's oftentimes a compliance law will say that they need to have an extra layer of security, or for just internal processes, they'll want to be able to search the emails in Therefore. So there's a lot of different reasons why a company would be interested in using that. All right, and that concludes the webinar. So if you want to learn more, check out our website, our YouTube channel, and if you're Therefore, if you want to stay connected with me or learn more about Therefore and you're a Canon or Canon partner, please go to the extranet e-learning site and check out electronic document import. It's a massive course, but it is full of really good information. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much too for everyone who came. If you have questions about RRPs, please contact customer service at therefore.net or your local Canon office to learn more about that. But I hope this was informative and interesting for you. And again, my name is Jennifer Schmidt. If you have any questions, you can also send me an email at jennifer.schmidt@therefore.net or just media@therefore.net. I'll get it too. So thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you later.